lot. How's everyone doing? Feels good to be the guy that goes right before the coffee break. You know, everyone's super pumped. They're bringing up my presentation, so anyone else feel that there's a joke that's going to come right next because it feels like you're in a comedy club, and you are, and you just think the next thing's going to be a joke and a punchline? It's not. It's more things about sales. All right, so today we're going to be talking about how do you grow high-performing reps from scratch. When we started ToutApp, when I started ToutApp early on, we tried both. And especially when you're starting out as a founder like myself who comes more from an engineering background, you're building out your sales function, and you're like, I know, I'm going to get this awesome salesperson, this really experienced salesperson. And so that's the natural thing that you tend to go with, and that's what we did, but didn't quite work. And I want to talk through why that didn't work and what's a model that we apply to grow our own reps and our own talent and really make people successful inside of ToutApp. But first, some quick context. This is something I do in all of my presentations. All the stuff that's meant to help you and be informative is in white. The promotional stuff is in gray. You can keep me honest. Quick context on ToutApp. We're founded in 2011. We're based in San Francisco. We build software to make salespeople faster, better, stronger. We help empower them. The way we do that is through this thing that's what we call badass tracking. We'll follow someone that you're emailing, from the email to the website, right down to presentations, everything. And we help you make decisions based on that. And then we present it in a nice little chart. So to build ToutApp and to build that and to sell to salespeople, the first thing we tried to do was actually hire that experienced rep, that person that just knows a lot about selling. Didn't work, and I'll talk about why. And then what we did is like, you know what, screw it. Let's just hire really smart people, hire the right type of person that doesn't have any sales background. And we'll talk about why that worked. So experienced rep came with a ton of baggage. This is not just based on one data point. I polled around and asked around quite a bit. They were probably really successful, maybe at Salesforce or Box or HubSpot. They did really well there. You even checked their W-2, or you were out in the parking lot looking at what car they drive, one of those things. But what you don't realize is they had an immense support system over at where they were, over at Salesforce or Box or wherever they were. And you don't necessarily have that support system at your company that you're building out. So they need a support system. They also need a playbook. They'll sit you down and say, okay, what's the positioning? Who are the competitors? How are we different? They'll want a playbook that they can actually start executing on as that first experience rep, because they've seen what a highly trained sales team actually, how they actually operate. The thing that you're going to find with an experienced rep is they can sell, they have sold, but they can't necessarily build. They can't build systems, they can't build processes, they can't build up from scratch. And if you're early stage, which I know a good percentage of you are also going out with new products into the market, you're building a ton. You need to conceptually think about how are things going to work. And so they can't really do that, and that was like the biggest deal breaker out of all of these things. You compare that to the inexperienced reps, and I don't say inexperienced in a bad way. All that means is they haven't really sold before. They haven't had a quota, they haven't had to chase after things like that. They didn't have a playbook or a sales manager or any of those things. There's perils of that too. There are cons. The biggest thing is they're millennials, and you can hate on millennials all you want. I'm a millennial. I understand. They still need a support system. They still need a playbook. They can't necessarily sell, and you're just like, wait a minute, this sucks. All of these things and more. But if you hire the right type of people, they can build. They can think conceptually about things. They're super smart, and they can come out with better solutions to your problems than the experienced person, or even the experienced sales manager that's been there, done that, and seen everything. Because the reality is sales is changing, marketing is changing, your product is unique, your audience is unique. Who would you rather have on your side? The been there, done that, I know the playbook, I'm just going to play it all over again, or the person that can think in terms of first principles? They can think in terms of what is the problem, what is air, what is water, how do I define this, how do I frame this, and really attack this, really punch this. So that's sort of how we went about it. And we've seen successes in our own company with this. We've hired people at the very basic level, and they've moved up, and they're slowly moving up to even positions of being directors in the company as we're starting to grow from just being a 6-person company, Max said, to nearly 30-plus people in the company in the last 6 months even. And we've seen that progression because they have that mental bandwidth. They've been able to be successful not only in a sales role, but beyond. And I want to talk about what our playbook is in achieving that. It comes down to about 4 things I'm going to walk you through. We didn't focus necessarily on sales experience. That's an easy one. But we did focus a lot on picking the right people. So as we talk to customers out there, there's basically 2 stages right now. There's the first stage of people, they have a sales team, they hunt, they gather, they close, they do everything. There's a second bucket that we've started to see, which is really innovative. They have an SDR team. They're primarily sourcing leads, generating opportunities, setting meetings, and then they pass it on to the closers, and then the closers pass it on to the success people, and so there's a whole funnel of people, and there's progression between those. And the biggest thing we've learned is the people that can actually succeed in starting off in that SDR role and actually move on to being AEs and things beyond the companies, in the company, are what we call 10Xers. That's what we refer to every single ToutApp employee that makes it in our company, and every single person that we end up hiring. We look at 10Xers. I'll talk about how we get there. And then we'll talk about how we have that steady progression into a selling role. So because you're hiring new, you need to set them off and start them off in a certain point and then help them grow. So we'll jump right into it. First one is really obvious, no prior sales experience required. Our top rep, I remember when I was interviewing her, it was back in 2012. She's been with us for it's going to be 2 years in about a month or so. I was interviewing her, and I don't know why. We had already been burned with the experienced reps, and I was interviewing her, and I said, hey, listen, I think that we're hiring for sales, and I think that you would be fantastic for the sales role. I think you'd do really well. And she's generally a soft-spoken person, which you wouldn't think about a salesperson. That's okay. But she knows what she wants, and she goes after it, which is what I like, and I'll talk about why I like that. She kind of like took her fist and banged it on the desk twice. Bang, bang. I don't want to be in sales. I don't want to be in sales. Our top rep right now. She brought in Dropbox, Box, Atlassian, Optimizely, Okta, all as customers. Companies that are probably going to IPO in the next 2 years, run on ToutApp. Never done sales before, went right in. So no sales experience required. And I think that's really powerful if you pick the right people. And you'll talk to people that are in the new model. They have the SDRs and the inside sales, and they grow from there. For those companies, the biggest thing you'll hear is not everyone makes it. A strange percentage of people actually don't go from the SDR to the AE positions. And that's a real problem you're going to have because you're going to have attrition, and you're investing so much in these people. So you have to pick the right people. So the big thing that it comes down to is how do you find the 10Xers? How do you find the right people? So over here at ToutApp, when you go from being a company of 6 people to 30 people and beyond, we're not stopping hiring. We're continuing to hire. We are hiring salespeople. As a salesperson at ToutApp, you'll make 20% of every dollar we bring in. So you will make money. But we set the incentives really strong, but we also set the expectations really high. And the biggest thing we realized is if we're going to scale in this way, we need to get really systematic about why we hire people, what we look for, and how do we make sure we get the people that are going to succeed. And so for every single person that comes through, this is the less creepy version, actually. The actual version that we use has the name of the person, it has the hiring lead and all of these things, but on the top left corner, it actually has their picture. So we do a ton of research in terms of the resume they gave us, but along with that, the LinkedIn profile. So we do a lot. So it's really funny when you're sitting across from the person on the interview and you're filling out the sheet, and they're clearly kind of looking over there like, oh, that's my picture. Oh, that's kind of weird. So there's a creepy factor to it. But so anyway, we basically broke it down to these key attributes. And I'll break them down a little bit on how we evaluate them, because I don't know about you guys, you can say what you have from a hiring process, but realistically, I've seen hiring done in some really large. I've worked at GE. I've worked at Bridgewater, which is the largest hedge fund in the world. You do a lot of fancy stuff around interviewing, but at the end of the day, you get together like, I don't know, I kind of like that guy. We should hire him. So the thing that we try to do is how do you actually force the discipline and you force the conversation to say, here's what we care about, do they match? Because what we figured out is you have to find those 10Xers and you have to match them on these attributes. So I'll break these down a little bit. You can steal them. I encourage you to come up with your own, but going through this has allowed us to identify the right type of people. The first thing we look for is culture. Culture is the most important thing. I know that tons of people on stage today have talked about how to hire, so I'll go a little bit quicker here. But I think it's valuable, so I'll cover all of these. Culture, and we have little sayings to explain to new hires, to new people on the team, what we mean by culture. Culture is not, I like that person. Culture is, if I have a dead body, I can go to this person on a Sunday and say, hey man, I need some help. I gotta bury this dead body. Can you help me out? It's the type of person that's gonna be on the team that'll actually be there for you. They'll understand you. They've got your back. That's culture. You may not totally get along with that person, but you're not gonna be creeped out going to them in your hour of need. The second thing we look at, skills, abilities. It's important to understand, this goes back into the fundamentals of what we're talking about. Skills can be taught. Abilities are innate. Sales skills can be taught. We can teach that to these people, but they have to have certain abilities. Start to define, do they have the skills, do they have the abilities, and can we dig into those? Affinity. So technically I broke the rule. My top rep, who didn't want to do sales, I said, okay, that's fine. You don't want to do sales, I get it. You don't have to do sales. You just need to call up a few customers and tell them you're here to help. Can you do that? She's like, I can do that. Tricked her. But you have to look at affinity. You have to look at affinity because they have to be interested in doing what they're doing. They could be fantastic at it, but if they don't like to do it, then it won't work really well. I am a fantastic engineer. I can code faster than any engineer out there, but I don't like doing it all the time. I only like to do it sometimes. Affinity is really important. Experience, have they done it? Yes, no, maybe. No if it matters. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. When we're hiring a VP of sales, experience does matter. For a brand new rep that we're growing through the organization, it doesn't matter. The last two are my favorites. Sparkle. So sparkle sounds all funny and weird. Sparkle is, sometimes we refer to it as grit. Someone else said grit in the audience when they were asking about characteristics. Grit is super important. Sparkle is even more important. It's the je ne sais quoi, I just don't know, but this guy is going to get it done. I have no doubt, this person could be a CFO in the company for all I know. Grit is super important. Sparkle is super important. So you have to and I think for each team, it's important to define what sparkle means to you. But if you look around in the room and you're really happy with the people that are in your company, sparkle is that thing that really binds you together, especially if you're early stage. And it's important to identify what sparkle is for you guys. And the last one is clock speed. We need incredibly smart people because we want to be the innovation leader, and therefore people have to think in terms of a first principles basis, and they have to be able to come up with creative solutions. So they need to have clock speed. So this is a newer one we added. Clock speed is when you're talking to them, and you're talking at a relatively faster clip, and it's an important topic you're grabbing. Can they keep up, or are you kind of like, where do I plug in the batteries on this guy? And that's a problem we've had, where not everyone has the batteries in them to actually keep up and keep it going, and you need that. So these are the attributes we looked at and really made a difference in our hiring because we really were able to zone in. So when you're doing the interview, and after then, when you're doing the debrief, you can talk through it. Because even in our company today, after hiring so many people as we've done, I'll pop in on some debriefings, and they'll be like, I don't know, I kind of like the guy. I think he'd be a good fit. I could go for it. And you say, no, that's not good enough. Tell me about culture. Is that a yes, no, or maybe? Tell me about affinity. Why do you think affinity is a yes? So you have to raise it to that higher level. And what we've found is when you highlight for these type of attributes, for us, it worked really well in identifying people that could be successful in selling and can grow beyond that. And they have the distance. They can go the distance, which is important because you want to hire super smart people, not just salespeople. In fact, we don't even call them salespeople. We call them happiness officers. So as we started to work through those attributes, we started to develop a shorthand for referring to the type of person that should be at ToutApp and that can be successful at ToutApp and that can sell at ToutApp. And the way we broke that down is these 4 things. I think that's 4. Yes, that is 4. Good. Number 1, they had responsibility at a very early age. So I had one person join the team. He managed the sales development organization at Responsys, massive global organization, got bought by Oracle for over $1 billion. And he's like, I only hire athletes. And I challenged him on that a little bit. Said, why do you hire athletes? Why athletes? First of all, the first funny part was he was not an athlete. Guy, super skinny, can't do anything. I only hire athletes. I'm like, why do you hire athletes? He's like, well, they show up, they are really dedicated, they will push hard, they're aggressive. I'm like, good. But what is the thing that really, really breaks it down? Like, let's back that up a little bit. And as we really probed into it, we looked at the people that we hired and were really successful in our organization, it wasn't that they were on a team and they were an athlete that made them successful. It was that they had early responsibility at a very early age, and they knew at a very early age what it means to show up or other people are let down from it. And that made a big difference. One of our top people, she worked at her dad's pizza shop. It was a family business. He was an immigrant. She knew that if she didn't show up after school and help, her family would suffer. That's responsibility at a very early age. And that's the kind of stuff that you want in your team because they are really bought on. And they're like, yeah, like I want to live for Tout. I want to bleed for Tout. This is something that I believe in. I'm not going to let the other people down. And that's what you need in your salespeople. They won't let your customer down. The second one we look at is, are they mission-driven? So I think this is one of the tricks, actually. A lot of sales managers that I talk to, I go out onto the field a lot to talk to customers, they're all like fucking millennials. And they don't realize I'm a millennial also, so I'm like, yeah, I know, right? They suck. It's like, actually, no, they're awesome. We have all millennials in our company, and they don't want to be told the tasks. They want a mission. They want something to believe in. And we do too. We want to have a mission. We want to make it where salespeople don't have to think about software. They sell. They focus on the human being that they're talking to. That's a mission you can get behind and get excited about. And so we want people that are mission-driven. And if you look for people that are mission-driven, then they will rally behind you. And they may not have the sales skills today, but they have what it takes to become that 10Xer to get what they need tomorrow to succeed. And we've seen that countless times. The last 2, I'll kind of go through it quickly because I'm running now low on time. Understands the difference between tasks, objectives, and goals. Not everyone does right off the bat. Maybe you don't either. I struggle with it sometimes. But these are people that are very goal-oriented. They have a goal. Tara had a goal. She's like, I don't want to do sales, but I want to focus on adding value to the customer. She had a goal around that. She had an objective, and she knew that the first task was to get a job. And so when I told her, like, well, how about this role? Would that work for you? She understood, like, well, that's a task. It aligns with my objectives and my goals. Yes, I can get on that. So that's like the level of conceptual thinkers you want to hire. If they can do that, if they can tell the difference between those 3 things, you can win. And the last one is creative and systems level thinkers. We are all about building systems. If you have a problem, realize that that is a certain class of problems, and if you build a system to solve that class of problems, you can solve all of those problems instead of just solving that one problem. You want people that think that way. If they don't think that way, you will lose. And if you can get 30 people that think that way, holy shit, think about what you can do. Think of the employee to revenue ratio you can achieve. That's what we focus on. So by hiring these 10Xers, inexperienced salespeople, and we apply it to other parts of the organization as well. We essentially developed this ramp. And for half the room, I would argue they already know this. It's obvious to you, so I apologize. The other half, you haven't seen this yet, so great. I'll show you what it is. And the simple conceptual way to think about it is you start them off first with, how do I just help my customers in a reactive way? Hopefully you have some customers, they're writing in, they have emails sending your way, maybe they're calling you. Put them on that first. Let them understand the product. Let them understand how to help these people. Let them understand how to have those higher level conversations. Start there. Then we move them to, okay, great. Now why don't you reach out to some people? They just signed up. Go reach out to them, talk to them, understand why they came in, and what you can do to help them. Again, focusing on just helping. And then finally, you move them up to keep helping them, but then ask for the money. And for the first year of our business, this is how we sold. We didn't have formal sales processes. It was all about reactive, proactive, and then people that were closing. And it wasn't about selling. Because the reality is we sell to salespeople. Two salespeople on the phone, there's echo on the line. They want to sell you their stuff. We're signed up for like 3 different file storage products because we have those customers and we have to sign up for all of them. They want to sell us their stuff too. So if you can shift the model to actually help these people, it makes a huge difference. But it has to be in your DNA. A more formal way to look at this, which I think you'll see more often out there, is you can start people off in customer success. And I actually think customer success, there's 2 classes of it. There's one all the way at the bottom left. There's one all the way at the top right. Because there's customer success in a reactive way and customer success in a super proactive way. But that's for another talk. But this is one way to look at it. You start people off customer success, reactive, customers are already writing in, get them to understand the mind of the customer. Then you move them to MDRs, inbound leads. Maybe you have SDRs in between that. Then you move them to closers. And the theory here is, this is not groundbreaking, but the theory here is that the percentage conversion as you go up this way, up and to the right, is low for most companies because they don't know to hire the right type of profile. But if you're looking at the type of attributes that we're looking at, if you're looking for those 10Xers, then the percentage conversion across all these stages is going to be much higher. That's the key thing that you want to look for. Hire the right type of people. If you don't have these people, and that's the other thing, a 10Xer with a bunch of 2Xers, they're just going to leave. They're not going to stick around. So you may have to do a full reboot if you really want to commit to this type of strategy. Because the 10Xer knows when the rest of the people are just dragging it down. It's a finely tuned machine. So you have to be really cognizant about that. So customer success, I kind of walked through this. I'll just skip this part so we have some time. And the idea here, which is what we've seen, the key here is because you have these 10Xers, as they go from customer success, MDR, closers, by the time they're in a closing role, they're what we call super reps. They've done it all. They understand the product. They understand the customer mindset. They understand all the features. And they're systems level thinkers. So while they've gone through these ranks, and I've seen it in our own business, one of the things that 2 of our 10Xers did was they sat down at the end of the year, last year. We were still a 6-person company. And then they put down all the templates they used, and they recategorized everything. So now when you go into ToutApp, you can see AE-competitors, AE-closing, AE-so on and so forth. They're systems level thinkers. They realize that each and one of those interactions across the sales process were instances of a certain class of problems that any rep we ever hire will face. And they understood conceptually that we're going to be hiring more reps, so they need to systematize and add checklists. So they did this on their own because that's just how they think. Systems, they're builders. And if you can get these type of people early on, whether it's a new product you're launching into the market or it's a brand new company, or you're further down, like if you can get these type of people and you get that orange box going, the systems and checklists, you can be really successful because it's a standard, repeatable process. Everyone talks about metrics. Everyone talks about having a repeatable process. Very few people have the discipline to do it. It's a hard thing to do. And these are the type of people that have the discipline to think that way. Because if you do it that way, you can win a lot faster. To wrap this up, early stage plus 10Xs, it's hard. You know very little. And I think that one of the things we forget, especially when you're going in to sell, there's 2 types of organizations you can build. You can build a very sales-driven organization. Sell. You can build a very product-driven organization that's backed up with a really strong sales team. And the sales-driven organizations apply the standard playbooks, and they can get the lift. But to really win it out in the long term, you need the product-driven organizations. And you need that curiosity to think about, like, hey, what's working? What's not? How do systems learn more? All those things are really important. So you need to recognize you know very little. And with the 10Xers, you're hiring the right kind of people to ask those questions and to build those systems. You move a lot faster because there's no baggage. There's no like, well, in my last company, we did it this way. It's green fields. You figure it out. And there's a plus side of this. It's a double-edged sword. because you have a group of people that don't know that much, they're brand new, they actually don't know what the limits are. So you're more likely to reach what I call global maximums versus local maximums. They can come up with a really unique and creative solution that no one has ever thought about. They're more likely to do that if you hire the smarter ones. Sure, there's a negative side where they completely screw everything up. but more often you're going to get people that are thinking very globally about how to solve these problems, which is a very, very powerful thing to have in your team.